All right, here we go. Danny's in his kitchen. Okay, hello, horror fans. Pete here from the Lasser Cast, and I am here with Chef Danny Torkel over there cooking his dinner. We are trying to, as timely as possible, get these Quiet Part Loud reviews out to you guys because this is an experience. I think we would just plow right through the show, but I like doing it in installments. Tonight we are talking about episodes 7, 8, and 9 for the Spotify exclusive horror thriller Quiet Part Loud. Danny, are you digging Quiet Part Loud?
I'm friggin'. I went from being intrigued by it to really liking it to genuinely loving it. I think in the course of these 3 videos that we've done. Just to give you some idea, now that YouTube is seeing every room in my apartment because I just keep every video is a different room. I got rice cooking behind me. The building that I live in, we have a laundry room downstairs on the first floor, and I was downstairs doing my laundry last night. I'm like, I'll just listen to Quiet Part Loud with my AirPods, and I have grown up watching horror movies. And I'm listening to episode 8 in particular, which is just really scary. And I basically was doing my laundry like this, looking around. I got my AirPods in. I'm creeping myself out. My laundry room has a motion sensor light.
Oh no.
So as I'm folding the laundry at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, getting scared by the sounds of this podcast, the light goes out in the laundry room. And at that point, I was like, well, I'm going to pause this and finish it upstairs in my living room because, this is getting a little ridiculous at this point. But I'm really, really liking it so far. It genuinely, episode 8 in particular, creeped the living hell out of me. And I'm really intrigued to see where it goes after, something happens we'll get to at the end of episode 9. So I'm really curious to see where this goes now for the last few episodes.
Yes. And I always mention the creative team behind it. Obviously, Jordan Peele, his Monkey Paw Productions, they're the producers of this podcast. Then Clay McLeod Chapman, who's a horror writer. He's one of the writers on this. Then we have Mac Rogers, who I think he's also written other podcasts like this. So I kind of want to check out his other stuff when we're done with this. But I'm listening to Whisper Down the Lane right now by Clay McLeod Chapman, the audiobook. And it kind of reminds me of this show in regards that I kind of have an idea where we're going. I'm like, okay, this is getting set up. I think this is going to happen next. But we go into these little valleys. We kind of turn in the story and we start to focus on things that I was not expecting. And that happens a lot in these episodes, 7, 8, and 9. First off, I thought that the woman that Rick Egan meets at the hotel, the one that kind of kicks off this whole nightmare, I thought that maybe we would see her at the very end of the show. By the 12th episode, she might come back. But we actually get a backstory for her. And I was going to ask you, you are familiar with the actor that plays Rick Egan. They always say Christina Hendricks in the credits, too. Is Christina Hendricks this woman, Allied Alice?
I didn't look at who plays who in the credits, aside from Tracy Letts, who plays Rick. And I'm 99% sure Millie Shapiro from Hereditary is
his daughter, Becca.
The daughter. And I looked up the actress who plays Noor, but I didn't look. I mean, I know Taran Killam from Saturday Night Live, right? Isn't Taran Killam from Saturday Night Live?
I believe so. Yeah.
So Christina Hendricks, of course, from Mad Men. I don't know if she plays his ex-wife or Allied Annie, because those are really the most prominent other female voices on the show, other than Noor, of course. So I would assume she's one of those or both of those women.
Yeah, right. With a thing like this, people can play multiple roles, absolutely. And so you said Allied Annie. It's not Allied Alice?
Is it Allied Alice? I
took notes while I was writing it. I don't know. Maybe, this thing's starting to creep into my skull, too. I don't know. Yeah. But I wrote Allied Alice, and episode 7, which is called Allies, starts out with an old recording, and it was kind of eerie because she's basically doing a talk show, or she's like a radio DJ, sort of before talk radio, and she's making a commentary on Japanese immigrants, like right around the time of World War II. And so it's this idea of like this sort of racism, this hatred has always kind of been a part of our country. It's always been affecting our airwaves. And so that was very scary. I was wondering if there is any kind of equivalent in real life to that.
Oh yeah, I would love to like dig a little deeper and find out if, you know, there was a Rosie the Riveter, but like a negative Rosie the Riveter who like
Rosie the racist.
Rosie the racist. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, join up with us and help, you know, spread white supremacy. I think that would be really interesting. I mean, there was a lot of, there were tons of groups during World War II that did not want us fighting the Nazis because they were secretly Nazis. I mean, Lindbergh was a Nazi, and like I'm saying this without trying to get political, but the first time in American history where you see the words "America First" are by the Americans who are anti-World War II, and most of those people are very pro-Hitler before, like pro-Hitler in the mid-30s, before Kristallnacht, before, like 1935 to 37, while he's coming to power and like ghettos are being set up, but he hasn't yet started murdering people. There was a lot of Americans that openly supported Hitler, and America First was their rallying cry. There's also, I teach a lot of Dr. Seuss cartoons, and Dr. Seuss started in political cartoons. And I have this amazing book that I use with my classes called Dr. Seuss Goes to War. And it has a lot of his cartoons where he does incredibly stereotypical drawings of Japanese people after Pearl Harbor. He's very pro-war because he was Jewish. So he's very anti-Nazi and anti-Hitler and anti-German. But yeah, I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, like Dr. Seuss, like they tried to like cancel him because of a lot of his cartoons, which were very racist and very towards Japanese people during World War II.
Yeah.
And that was, so maybe there wasn't an Allied Alice or Allied Annie, but there was definitely people that were supporting the other side really before the war started.
Yes.
I just love this idea. Like, I was wondering where this idea of Quiet Part Loud was going. And I love the idea of like, it's almost like this evil entity that lives and spreads itself like a virus through sound, but that it chose hate to be like it's
wave?
What?
Like a sound wave? That's like a particular sound wave it's looking for to carry it?
It goes from like hate vessel to hate vessel. And it makes me think like, what if these people that we're watching on TV, these, people we've compared Rick Egan to, these Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, Bill O'Reilly types, what if they were just like a symptom of this virus or a symptom of this evil, dark entity that wants to like destroy humanity, and it needs to like feed off of transmitting its hateful voice out to the world.
Yeah.
It's and I guess the best comparison for today would be, and we've been talking about it almost every night, you, me, Brian, Chris, Elon Musk and Twitter, and the idea that like you have this guy who's rich and he buys Twitter, and everything he does so far has been to, reinstate the people that had been banned for spreading hate, Mm-hmm. He claims it's to support the First Amendment, but those people are using their First Amendment to spew awful things, and spread lies and misinformation. And he's like totally cool with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like, again, this is just, and again, I know Jordan Peele didn't write or direct this, but just his name being attached to it.
Yeah.
And the timeliness of this coming out. It while Alex Jones is going through a court case, while Elon Musk is buying Twitter and posting polls about should we reinstate Donald Trump on Twitter, it feels so timely.
Oh yeah,
just like Get Out did in 2017, just like Us did, and even Nope to a degree had that level of timeliness with the message that he's trying to get out there. It just feels like his handprints are all over this.
Yes. His Monkey Paw prints, his Monkey Paw Productions are on there. It's like what's the chimp from Nope? What the hell's that chimp's name? Gordy. Bloody handprints. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I mean Jordan Peele, obviously he is like, people have compared him to Carpenter and stuff, and he's doing Carpenter's work now, right? Like he's making that modern day commentary on our modern times, right? And so obviously he chose this particular story. Now I wonder if the genesis was with Clay McLeod Chapman or Mac Rogers. I would love to interview both of them at some point. I am trying to interview Clay maybe in December. But
speaking of interviews, I'm going to shout you out because you just uploaded this morning an interview with Tom Holland, not Spider-Man, but the original Tom Holland, the writer-director of Child's Play and Fright Night. He wrote Psycho 2. The man is a legend in the horror community, and you had an absolutely awesome conversation with him. I listened to it while I was watching the World Cup today, because the World Cup was a 0-0 tie, the game I was watching, so I didn't need sound for that. So I had you in my ear talking to Tom Holland. That interview is up on the channel. I recommend it to everybody. He has a new book out called Fright Night Origins, and I can't wait to read that. But yeah, your interview with him was awesome, and I'm really jealous because we were supposed to do that interview together, and then it got kind of rescheduled, and I missed out on it, and I would have loved to have talked to him. He sounds like the coolest guy.
He was very cool. I mean, it got a little weird when he kept telling me to go to Willowbrook, but I was like, dude, I live in Texas, like, come on. But yeah, absolutely check that interview out if you get a chance, guys. I was going to say, though, with like Jordan Peele, obviously there is this racial context to this whole thing. And it's not just the Japanese immigrants, which of course would like lead to the Japanese internment camps during World War II. We're also talking about there's a Korean neighborhood that gets attacked in one audio clip in this first episode. Later on, they talk about Chinese workers working on the railroad and rebelling against their employers because they're getting paid way less than their like white counterparts. So it like with this show, like with Jordan Peele's movies, there's always kind of been this focus on African Americans, the African American experience. This is sort of highly focusing on the Muslim experience, but then also talking about other races. But the idea with these three episodes is that like racism is just a part of the American experience. This thing has been here from before we were here. Yeah. And it's going strong today. Yes.
That idea like that this entity has to get their message across to the most people, and the easiest way to reach the masses with a hateful message is to point out the other, whatever the other is. Right. I mean, again, not to be, I'm not, this is nothing to do with politics, just current events. I mean, we're living in a time where we're a few days removed from another mass shooting at an LGBTQ club. So there is, and then that is immediately followed up by, I think it was Herschel Walker of all people posting a message, had a new advertisement that was basically anti-trans people. So it's like a hate crime gets committed. People of a certain certain group of people get attacked and murdered, and then that is used like Alex Jones did with
Sandy Hook.
Sandy Hook. It's used to spread a message of hate instead of the way 9/11 actually did for, well, I guess for many people, not all people, as this show proves.
Yeah.
It helped to kind of bring America together, unless, of course, you were Muslim, and then it very much drove them away, which I think, again, the writers do a great job showing and showcasing, like, that darker side of America coming together after 9/11, that we experienced that part of it as white people. We didn't experience the hate that people got,
Right. Yeah, man, it must be pretty hard cooking your rice over there, sitting on top of your soapbox, But
I actually finished the rice. I'm about to do the chicken. So
nice. But no, look, that's the whole idea. I'm actually glad that we get to kind of show our political beliefs more in this discussion, because.
And let me tell you about guns. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, no.
You live in Texas. I don't want to get you attacked.
There you go. But anyway, we talk a lot about the politics of this. Let's actually get into the story now. And so in this first episode 7, we hear that Rick is sending Vern to Willowbrook. Poor old Vern is on board. He's the one that showed Rick the recording of he showed him that recording of the attack of the Korean people. They attacked this Korean neighborhood during the Rodney King riots, and during that recording there was that sound once again. So obviously it's always connected to these sort of hate crime moments. And so Vern goes to Willowbrook early, and he hears that sound there. Rick is on the phone with him at one point. Vern gets disconnected. Rick calls Vern back multiple times, and he doesn't pick up. And then at one point, the phone literally says, that number is no longer connected. And then the operator starts talking in that evil voice, to him.
I think that's where I was, like, downstairs in the laundry room. I was like, all right, I got to get the fuck out of here. Let's fold the clothes upstairs.
Yes, yeah. I didn't think that, like, Vern would be going on his own adventures and stuff in this show. So I just like the way it keeps branching out. So that's the way that episode 7 ends, is with, once again, that voice saying, bring Noor to Willowbrook. So it's very, very much focused on bringing Noor there. That just keeps repeating over and over again. Episode 8, Take My Hand, has yet another really scary moment that has nothing to do with this creature. It's just, once again, racism against Muslim people. We have a flashback to the night where the Staten Island 3 go missing. And as we know from a previous episode, Noor was there when they went missing. And so what happens is Khalil and Noor and their 2 friends who are twins go to hang out and, like, I think maybe even have drinks. I'm not sure. I don't really remember. But, like, these guys in a truck come by, or a car, I'm just imagining it. You just hear a vehicle pull up, right?
Yeah.
And I hate to say this, Danny, but, like, it really, truly reminded me of home. It really reminded me of Staten Island. The way their accent, the way they were talking, they're just basically like, hey, he said that his father went into the World Trade Center.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
And it's just like, when on Staten Island, many of the first responders that went into the Trade Center were from Staten Island, right? One of the most famous stories from Staten Island is that there was a firefighter who was on his way home from work September 11th in the morning, and he heard about the Trade Center being hit, and he ran back through the tunnel to get into Manhattan, and he had his gear on him, I believe. I don't know. He ran back to Manhattan through the tunnel to get to Ground Zero, and then he died there. And so every year there is a marathon in his honor, and firefighters run through that tunnel, and everyone else that wants to participate runs through that tunnel. But, like, Staten Island really bore the brunt of the 9/11 attack in terms of first responders.
And for those people who, for anybody who's not from New York, Staten Island, for all the jokes, Staten Island's makeup is very, there a lot of police, a lot of firemen, a lot of sanitation, like a lot of city employees live in Staten Island. And so it is a very, pro-America, pro-New York borough. Politics aside, like lots of hardworking city employees represent that borough. And so, I know what you were just bringing up. I've heard that before about, the first responders there. But I mean, at the same time, though, like I know from teaching, I know like students who are Indian, students who are, from countries that were not even close to being in that area, who, their families got shit on 9/11 just because the color of their skin or how, they looked and they were confused for people of other ethnicities, So, it's one of those, you can kind of see the both sides of the issue thing, but it sucks on both sides.
Thank God we are covering a podcast where there's so much background noise and things like that.
Why do you hear my chicken cooking?
Are you fucking frying chicken as we're talking about like racism and 9/11? Oh God. All right. People can. This is raw. I mean, this show's even more raw than that chicken was before. But anyway, so in episode 8. They get chased by these guys, these Staten Island guys who, like I said, remind me very much of people I grew up with, right? And they make their way to Willowbrook to find safety. And unfortunately, that is where the creature is waiting for them. And
there's that.
Go ahead.
There's that. There's this amazing moment where the kids, they've gotten away from these guys, and they find like one of the boys tells Noor and Kareem about, let me tell you this story about this one crazy guy. And it turns out he was just like making shit up.
Oh, yes.
And then they find a tape recorder, and the tape recorder is like, hello, it's me. Here's my story. And they're like, he's like, how could it be that? I just made that shit up.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it turns, and it's obviously the sound, the entity trying to get into their heads. And I don't listen to Quiet Part Loud when you're in a borderline underground laundry room at night with motion sensor lights. It's a bad idea.
Yes. Definitely listen to it while you're frying chicken. And that's also good for when you're making a podcast too.
Yeah. When you're you should listen to reviews of Quiet Part Loud while you're making dinner.
There you go. Cooking with Daddy. That's our new segment.
Yeah.
Anyway, that sequence that you're talking about where they're describing this boy, Timmy, and how he tried to use all these different tools to get into his skull, and they just started bashing his head. That's this perfect example of how just dialogue itself can just put an image in your head and creep you out. I'm sitting there imagining the tools. I'm picturing this boy, hospital gown on. He's messing around trying to cut open his head to get at something inside. I can visualize that whole thing just based on narration alone, just dialogue. So, super impressive. So essentially that whole episode is like a flashback that Noor is telling. And then when it is finally done, we have Rick there at Willowbrook with Noor. So essentially what the creature has wanted this whole time happens by the end of episode 8, which leads us right into episode 9, Sonic Web, which is great. It came out from Sega. I remember it has Spider-Man in it too. It's really good. But
man, that's really the name of the video game?
No, I'm just making a joke. Yeah. I'm trying to be saucy, man. You're providing the chicken. I'm providing the sauce.
Listen, I am providing our audience with a full experience.
Yes.
Okay. Look, you can see my fan on in the background.
Yes. When we are done,
browning the chicken now.
Yes, because we're also on YouTube and podcast. When you're done cooking, man, I want you to take a piece of that chicken and eat it for everyone to see. Anyway, episode 9 is very akin to like like in the Matrix or something, where you're in this sort of like dreamlike world and things are being explained to you. It's very much like in the first Matrix, after Neo has taken the pill and he's talking to Morpheus, and like things sort of shift around him to kind of tell the story.
I feel like we bring that up a lot when we talk. We're covering on Comic Books Transformed, your other channel. We're covering The Peripheral, a show on Amazon Prime, very sci-fi, futuristic, and we've brought up like how I feel like The Peripheral needed an episode like episode 9 of Quiet Part Loud, where yes, this episode is basically all exposition. It's almost entirely backstory, but it's the entity, it's the evil force doing the telling. It's Neo meeting Morpheus, except it's really Neo. What if Neo met Agent Smith, and Agent Smith is explaining everything along the way,
Yes.
And we get this like detailed backstory, and I got chills listening to a lot of this. Like, I really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah. I mean, we have Rick talking to Alice once again. She's the one that has referred to the creature as the big guy, and she's the one that kind of explains its origin. She said that that it was inside of a host at one point, and the host died in the woods, and essentially the creature was kept within him. She uses that line that that age-old line of like, if a tree falls in the middle of the woods, is there anyone there to hear it? And so essentially, because there's no one to hear this creature in the middle of the empty American woods, it's there for so long. And then eventually what happens is, it's not even the fucking woods, right? It's in like the desert, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
right.
yeah. There and that character, like, didn't he send himself out into the desert thinking that as long as he's out there, it will contain the voice. It'll contain like the evil.
Right.
So it just so happened at the exact same time I'm listening to this, I watched the movie 3,000 Years of Longing.
Oh, okay.
And that movie, Idris Elba plays a jinn. And this show has used that idea of like, and so that reminded me a lot. There's parts of that movie where Idris Elba is talking about like how his bottle, his genie bottle, was thrown to the bottom of the ocean and he was just stuck there for 1,000 years, or it was stuck under a brick inside of a castle for another 500 years, and he was just like trying to send his voice out for somebody to hear him. And that's what this reminded me of. They brought up, Rick Egan talks about, because of Muslim culture, he talks about the idea of jinns or genies, and like the whole, again, monkey paw type of deals that they make. And it reminded me of that in a way where I kind of felt like he's waiting for the entity, the voice, the big guy is waiting for somebody to take him up on the offer, make the wishes, so to speak. Yeah. And I love that the woman is like, she feels like such a willing accomplice.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is so rare in a story like this, because most of the time it's like a good-natured person gets taken advantage of by an evil entity. Like I think of like Arnie in Christine.
Yeah.
He's like he's just he's a dopey, nerdy kid, and he gets taken advantage of by this evil force and turned evil. This woman was like, yeah, come on, let me spread your message. Intern those Japanese.
Jesus. Yeah.
So I just love a lot of this. The chicken is going crazy right now. It's
well, one of the things that we try to give praise to every single episode is the sound design. And one of the things I liked in particular about this whole sequence was that the creature, the entity, basically says that everyone it's ever hooked, there's the chicken, everyone it's ever hooked, he's eating it, is in there with him right now. And you just hear all these people sort of screaming out, like groaning in pain all together. It's once again, it's just sound. It's just people making noises. But in my head, I'm kind of picturing this sort of, Event Horizon kind of, quick flash sequence, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, super well made. One of the fun things about this show, too, is, and I didn't realize this, you could go onto Spotify and you can hit transcript, and it literally gives you all the things that are said in the episode. And that's actually how I took my notes last time around. And so you can actually see sort of the script that they wrote. It's not exactly word for word, but it just shows you how, like, there's the word on the page and what they're implying, and then there's the delivery of the lines, and the guy that plays Rick is fantastic. The guy that plays Noor is fantastic. Khalil is great.
Yeah. And that was the other thing. And we were talking about this before we started recording, or before I started cooking. And that was that there's this suspension of time. And this brings us to the end of episode 9.
Right.
That when the voice gets inside of you, it stops time, or it delays time, suspends time. So Khalil is supposed to be 23, but he's still like the teenage boy that disappeared in 2001.
Yeah.
Whereas Noor, of course, has grown up. The other boys grew up. But Khalil got, like, because he got controlled by the voice, he got, like, suspended in time. At the end of the episode 9, Rick finally escapes from this, I think they call it the blank, where he's being, like, spoken to by the voice, by the entity. And a year and a half has gone by.
18 months, yeah.
Yeah, people find him and they're like, holy shit, Rick Egan. And he's like, yeah, what are you, fans? And they're like, well, you're the most famous missing person in America. And he's like, oh, how long have I been gone? And he's like, 6 months. They're like, no, try 18 months. Yes. And so he doesn't know what is going on with his daughter. He doesn't know if Becca is around. He doesn't know where, his ex-wife is. He doesn't know where Vernon is. He doesn't know anything. 18 months have passed, and he has no idea what's gone on in that time period. But he's been gone. So that's where we leave off. And it's like, okay, there's 3 episodes left. I can't wait to see where this goes. And you mentioned what you mentioned before. It just made me think, like, as much as I'm loving this as a podcast, as a movie guy, knowing the people involved in this, from the writing, directing, starring, and producing standpoint, I would love to see this as a movie. I'd love to see how they present episode 9 in particular. I'd love to see how that is presented. Yeah. It almost would feel like, we mentioned The Matrix. It almost feels like something Moon Knight-ish, where, that... where he just, like, he loses control of his mind and body, and he's like, he just comes back and he's in a different time and place.
Yeah.
And I would love to see how they do that. I'd love to see if they cast the people that are doing the voices for the podcast. I'm just so interested to see what that would look like.
Yeah, I know that they have absolutely made movies based upon podcasts, or they've made TV shows based upon podcasts. I've watched a few that are actually really good too. But I'm glad you kind of brought it all to a close. I'm guessing you got to eat your chicken, but I was going to say, like, 2 things that I thought were really great about that last episode too, was that you mentioned his daughter, Becca. She's there at Willowbrook too. And Vern is there too. The creature has them all kind of prisoner, and then he does let them leave. It says that, like, it keeps its word, and he lets them leave. And then while Rick is in this crazy dream space talking to the creature, the creature basically gives him a choice. It says, if you want this power, like, because you essentially could just go back to the way you are and not have a life at all, not have a presence, or you could have this amazing presence. You could be like the voice that, starts this new crusade. And I think Rick says, let's wreck them all or something like that. And it's interesting because like his voice, when he's like the Rick that's with his daughter and he's the Rick that's kind of witnessing all these crazy things, he sounds kind of weak and he sounds vulnerable and you feel for him. But then when he has that radio persona, he's all like, oh, I'm a tough guy, Bill O'Reilly. I'm this guy, I'm a macho man, right? And he does that voice right at the very end when he's saying like, let's do it. Let's just fuck this up. So he does make that deal. And I think that the creature using its power essentially like shifts the world, like it changes the world. And I think that in these last 3 episodes, he's going to come out to a world where like he is this major media force now. And he might get scared by the world that he's created. That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So anyway, I think Danny's going to go eat his chicken. And
for the record, I just want to say I'm taking Charlotte to her school talent show tonight, so I'm trying to double multitask so I can feed everybody before we go to the talent show.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, I would not be cooking during a podcast. But I was able to make a semi decent meal of chicken and rice during a podcast. So,
Danny, I'm glad that you're showing your food, right? Because here's the thing, right? This episode's going to go up on Wednesday, November 23rd in the morning. And for those of you guys that have been like watching the Lassercast or listening to the Lassercast for the 2+ years that we've been on, Thanksgiving is here. And we are just really, really thankful for all of you guys that comment on our stuff, that watch our videos, that give us views. Danny and I could just talk to each other and have fun. But we like to put on these shows so that, we can kind of promote things like this, just get this stuff into everybody's ears, right? Or have them watch stuff. So thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And so that's it. We got this done. We're going to do 3 more episodes, which I think we'll wait till post Thanksgiving. Go ahead.
One more episode of the last 3 episodes of the season. Oh, we are going to do one more episode of Quiet Part Loud, focusing on the last 3 episodes. Right. And I have been promising Chucky reviews. The season finale of season 2 is tomorrow. I will watch that tomorrow. And Thanksgiving morning, I will record my review. I will probably post it over this coming weekend so that it doesn't interfere with your holiday. You can listen to it on your way home from your Thanksgiving plans. Chucky episodes 5 through 8. And we're you should go and listen to our interview with the vampire stuff. We recorded episode 6 reviews. We recorded a review of episodes 1 through 6, and then we did a review of the finale. And those have gotten a lot of views and a lot of comments. People seem to really love that show and interacting with us in the comments on YouTube. It's great. I can't wait for Mayfair Witches in January. I can't wait for season 2 of Interview with a Vampire on AMC. It's just such a good freaking year for horror. Whether like in every medium, TV, movies, podcasts, you name it. I'm sure Ice Nine Kills put out an album, so I can include music in there. It's just a great, great freaking year for horror overall.
Yes, amen. And don't forget fucking horror books too, horror novels.
Oh, of course. What am I talking? I missed out on our most the most videos we put out in the last 2 months have been your author interviews. So yes, horror writing as well. Tons of great horror books. If you like author interviews, Pete is on a crusade. He is,
there you go.
He is the Rick Egan of interviewing horror authors.
Thank you so much, man. Yeah. We got our Tom Holland video that's up right now, and then I am editing my Bo Johnson video, and that should come up by the beginning of next week too. So, guys, thank you so much for spending your time with us. Happy Thanksgiving, and we will see you guys next week.